Welcome to the Insurance Brokers Podcast, Helpful Hints. Here we break down the best, most informative bits of our full-length interviews.
So the platforms are obviously really, really important. And the platforms you've mentioned, email marketing, SEO, various social media, links with sort of big national bodies or associations and thought leadership articles in those spaces, all really, really good stuff. Can you talk to me a little bit about the strategic planning and work that you guys do prior to that? And I'll give you an example. Some of the things we do is we always do a bit of a sort of a brainstorm at the beginning, which is, so you want to grow, that's great. By how much, in which verticals? All right, 10% in property development portfolios. Okay, great. So if we look at an average conversion rate of say 1 to 3%, how many people need to go in the top of your funnel? Let's find that amount of actual companies and actual people from which we can see which platforms are relevant. So that kind of thinking is often missed in my experience with businesses, whether it's insurance or otherwise, because that's not, you've got so many hats to wear and that's one of the hats that falls off. What do you guys do to support brokers in that kind of initial, I want to grow, but I don't know how to direct it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I'd always tend to revert to something that I was taught when I was studying marketing many years ago, is that it can be as complex as simple as you want it to be. And the approach I always take is to try and look at marketing as 3 components. And that component is your proposition, your audience, and the communication channels. So effectively, how you communicate that proposition to that audience, what methods you use. And then once you get your proposition right, which isn't that hard to do because we all have a proposition, more times than not in our business, we have a pretty good idea of who your audience is, because there will be people either locally based businesses or businesses within particular trade groups, or if you've got a certain scheme or a specialism, you're going to go after those type of audiences. So it's pretty easy to identify who the audience is. The key bit is actually figuring out what communication channel works right for which audience, and it's a mix. So if we're to look at it in a bit more of a scientific way, we purchase data, for example. I would say to an insurance broker, let's assume they have no idea who you are, because they probably won't, because you haven't done much marketing. And firstly, let's not look at this as a one-off campaign. Let's look at this as a 12-month project. So we have to assume nil knowledge at the beginning. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some email campaigns to begin to get some brand awareness moving, and let's get your name in front of them, so that if when we look at the next element of this campaign, you will at least have some recognition with them. And we'll do a campaign, and we have various stats as to open rates and click-through rates which we would deem to be acceptable, and then we'll implement a telemarketing campaign to sit on top of that. And we'll know that the telemarketing campaign could probably, if we're going for 100 leads or 200 leads, it will probably get maybe 10 appointments, 15 if it's really, really successful. So we know those metrics. And then to sit alongside or on top of the telemarketing, we might do a direct mail campaign. So having started with an audience of, say, 500, we will whittle it down to the most expensive element, which will be the direct mail, to probably only 50. But we will have warmed up the rest of them, and we will have created brand recognition. And we will continue to do the email campaigns because they're cheap and efficient and very quickly to deploy. And then next year, having done some of the hard work this year in ascertaining renewal dates and that critical information, when we do this next year, our whole marketing is going to be a lot smarter, because we know when people are renewing, so we can target and focus our activities around that renewal date. So again, it's all about being realistic with your metrics. It's all about looking at what you do to create that brand awareness, and that's your email campaigns, that's your website, that's your social media presence. But in order to bridge the brand awareness to money in, so actual generating income, there has to be some direct marketing, and that's always going to be telemarketing, either internally or externally, because you're going to have to speak to them at some point. Direct mail, attending events, arranging meetings, whatever it is. So as long as there's some form of expectation and metric appended to each of those types of communication channels, that's when it becomes more successful and realistic.